All right, let's get into it. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on a profession that, let's be honest, most of us probably only know from TV and movies. We're going to deconstruct the role of the professional counselor piece by piece and see what really makes them tick. I mean, you've seen it, right? The wise, quiet person in a comfy chair just nodding along. But is that really the whole story? Not even close. The reality is so much more dynamic, so much more structured. So let's push past the stereotypes and get to the real heart of the profession.
So, at its core, what is counseling? Well, you can see here it's a professional relationship, but the key word, the really important one, is empowers. It's not about fixing problems for someone. It's about empowering them to achieve their own goals. And look how broad that is. We're talking mental health, sure, but also wellness, education, and even career ambitions. It's a huge field.
Okay, so to really get a handle on counseling, we've got to start with the person in the room, the counselor. Let's lay down the first building block of our explainer and define who this professional actually is. This quote right here really nails the action behind the job title. A counselor is basically a guide. They're not there to just hand you the answers. Instead, they help you find your own. Just look at those verbs. Identify, improve, strengthen, promote. It's a super active, collaborative process, and it's all about building a person up. So, how exactly do they do all that? Well, a counselor wears a lot of different hats. We're about to map out their entire function by looking at 5 very distinct roles they play. Think of these as the fundamental pillars of their work. That's right, there are 5 of them. They're often called the 5 C's, which is kind of catchy, and they give us this really powerful way to understand just how multifaceted a counselor's job is. So let's break them down one by one. First up, and this is the big one, the core role, the counselor. This is the absolute foundation. It's all about creating a safe, confidential space that's built on warmth and trust. Seriously, without this therapeutic relationship, nothing else works. It's the engine that powers all the personal growth. Next, they're a coordinator. You know, no person is an island. And their problems aren't either. A counselor often acts like a bridge, connecting their client to other crucial resources. That could be a psychologist for more tests, a social service agency, or maybe a support group. They're the ones making sure the client gets the full, comprehensive care they need. Now, this one is fascinating. As a consultant, a counselor might actually help someone who is helping someone else. So, for example, imagine a teacher is really struggling with a student's behavior. A counselor can step in to consult with that teacher, giving them expert strategies and an objective perspective to improve the situation for everyone involved. Counselors are also really proactive. As conductors of activities, they don't just sit back and wait for problems to show up. They're out there designing and running programs, things like workshops on stress management, career fairs, or mental health awareness campaigns, to give skills and support to the whole community. And finally, we have the change agent. This is probably their most dynamic role. Here, the counselor acts as a catalyst for change in the systems around a client. This could be anything from working with a school to get a real anti-bullying policy in place, or with a company to improve its mental health resources. They're the ones who spot the bigger issues and push for solutions that make the whole environment healthier. Okay, so we've got the roles down, but what skills do counselors actually use when they're in the room with someone? Let's move on to our next building block and open up their toolkit to see the specific tools that make them so effective. These are called micro skills, but don't let that name fool you. They are incredibly powerful. These are the fundamental nuts and bolts of communication that really make up the art and science of a counseling session. Each one has a very specific job, from building trust to getting clarity. So let's do a quick deep dive on a couple of these just to see how they work in the real world. We'll start with one of the most important, asking open-ended questions. Basically, these are questions that you can't just answer with a simple yes or no. See how simple that is? But it's so effective. It's not, "Are you having a bad week?" It's a completely open invitation. It puts the client in the driver's seat and empowers them to explore what's really on their mind. It gives them total ownership of the session. Next up, let's talk about reflecting feelings. This is so much more than just listening. It's about showing genuine understanding and empathy. It's the skill of hearing the emotion behind the words and then gently holding up a mirror to it. So, for example, if a client says, "I'm just so overwhelmed with work," a counselor might say something like, "It sounds like you're feeling a lot of pressure right now." That simple phrase validates the emotion. It's not about giving advice, it's about communicating, "Hey, I'm with you and I hear what you're feeling." This is how you build immense trust.
So we've covered the roles and the skills, but what's guiding every single decision a counselor makes? That brings us to the blueprint of the entire profession, the strict ethical code they live by. And trust me, this is absolutely non-negotiable. These 5 principles right here are the moral compass for every single counselor. Autonomy is all about respecting the client's right to choose. Justice means treating everyone fairly. Fidelity is about being trustworthy. But let's take a closer look at 2 that sound pretty similar but are critically different. This comparison really shows you the nuance of their ethical duties. Beneficence is the proactive principle. I must actively work to help my client. Non-maleficence, on the other hand, is the protective principle. Above all else, I must not cause any harm. You absolutely need both to guarantee the client's safety and well-being. All right, we've defined the counselor, we've explored their roles, we've opened their toolkit, and we've read their ethical blueprint. Now, let's put it all together and see the finished building. Where do these professionals actually go to work?
The short answer is pretty much everywhere. I mean, just look at this range. You've got school counselors guiding students, career counselors working in corporate settings, even mental health counselors supporting soldiers in the military. It just goes to show you that those core counselor skills, building trust, helping people communicate, and promoting well-being, are needed across the entire spectrum of human life. So here's the bottom line. Counseling is way more than what we see on screen. It is a structured, skilled, and deeply ethical profession that empowers people in just about every walk of life. And that leaves us with one final thought. Now that you see the whole picture, where do you see the work of a counselor making the biggest difference in your own community?